The Death God's Daily Troubles by MagicalDucky. Chapter 24. Lunchboxes are the best type of weapon for attempted assassination. Royal Academy, Room 207. Kyle's point of view. It was another beautiful day today. The sunlight outside was pouring into the classroom from the window, and the sound of the birds chirping outside gave me a peaceful sense of tranquility, one which was immediately interrupted by the clack of wood, followed by Sophie's crystal-clear voice. "Checkmate." "Not again." The sound of chairs scraping against the floor followed the outburst of Sophie jumping out of her seat with a proud smile on her face and turned to me with her hands on her hips while Raven fell to his knees in defeat. With little over a month that had passed since I had my duel with Raven, and after that first match, he'd been coming over every day during lunchtime to play chess with me, so as a result, we'd become pretty good friends. Surprisingly, the class eventually joined in on the chess too. So, to deal with the new influx of players, I had 2 new, more professional-looking chess sets made. And after about 20 or so games, we basically established a loose skill ranking. At the top, of course, was yours truly. And right after me was Mari, next in 3rd place was Sophie, while 4th and 5th place go to Halbert and Rengus, who are about the same level. 6th and 7th place, Rena and Zane, who are also close to being equally skilled, and in last place, Raven. Honestly, I don't know where he's finding the determination to keep going after losing so much. Even Mari lost most of her steam after losing to me about 10 times in a row the first day I played against her. I mean, occasionally he makes a good move or two, but he rarely learns from his mistakes, and after a few more games against him, I noticed that he only makes those good moves after covering his right eye. Furthermore, for some reason, it only works when he's playing against me. Well, the mere fact that he had some sort of secret weapon against me alone is probably why he kept trying to play against me, despite our levels being so vastly different. But I don't think he's properly understanding that I'm the final boss. The level 99 Demon Lord, if you will. While he's still a level 1 hero who just started off on his journey. Just because you have one attack that's super effective against me doesn't mean that you can just go ahead and skip past the other 98 levels. Unfortunately for Raven, though, even a Demon Lord gets bored after a while, and just stomping him like usual isn't much fun anymore. I came to the conclusion that he can't improve much from only playing against me either, so recently I've begun to outsource my games against him to my loyal demon generals, aka my students. While I sit by and play against someone else, watch the match, or read a book. "How's that, Professor Kyle?" "It took 22 moves to beat him this time." "Nice job, Sophie. As expected, of my first general." I held my chin up with my hands as I nodded in approval while looking at the final state of the board. Sophie had systematically hunted down most of Raven's pieces before cornering his king, making this her 14th win against Raven. Naturally. I held out my hand out towards Sophie, and we exchanged a quick high five before we both turned to stare at Raven, who was looking up at us from the floor. "All right. Are you ready, Sophie?" "On the count of 3 like always, right?" "Yep." Sophie and I simultaneously plastered smug grins on our faces as I held out my closed fist. 1. I extended one pointer finger upwards to start the countdown while Sophie held her hand up to cover her mouth. 2. My middle finger followed my pointer finger, forming my hand into a peace sign that, as I could hear a few faint giggles already starting to leak out of Sophie. 3. Finally, my ring finger shot up, completing the countdown as Sophie finally couldn't hold it in anymore. We both pointed at Raven while laughing hysterically. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it all!" cried Raven. Raven slammed his fist against the ground in frustration, and Sophie and I danced around him while we were continuing to make fun of him. "I'll get you back for this humiliation one day, Kai." "Oh? Well, you'll get me back, Raven. Let me ask you then, how are you going to defeat me, the Demon Lord, when you can't even beat one of my loyal generals? Kuh! A few moments later, after our laughter finally died down, Halbert let out a dry chuckle before calling out to us with a helpless look on his face. Maybe you guys should just give him a break, huh? You two? A break? Those are some bold words coming from my second general himself. I gave Halbert a hearty chuckle, and Rangus and Zane each grabbed one of his shoulders with understanding smirks on their faces. The enemy's humiliation deserves no remorse, Albert. Yeah, after all, we have to celebrate our victory somehow, don't we? Well said, my third and fourth generals. We all exchanged a few more laughs at Raven's expense before Mari's annoyed voice interrupted us from across the room. Oi, can you idiots quiet down? I'm trying to play a game here. After yelling at us, she turned back to Rena, and the annoyed look on her face instantly transformed into a blissful smile as she cheerfully placed her piece down on the board in front of her. All right, your turn, Rena. Rena let out a cute groan as she held her head in her hands while staring at the chessboard in front of her with a distracted look on her face. It's okay. You can take your time. I'm sorry, my fifth general, but even the Demon Lord himself can't save you from this. So, all I can say is that I'm sure to remember you. Thanks for your service. I sent off my fifth general with a short salute before turning back to the rest of the class and clearing my throat to get their attention. So, like I was saying, it's fine, Halbert. At this point, I'm sure he's already used to it, and it's not like we really mean any of it. It's all in good fun, right? I turned to Raven, who let out a sigh before getting up with a bitter smile on his face while patting his clothes. Yeah, anyway, I have to get back to class now, but I'll be back tomorrow as usual. So, just wash your neck and wait, Hawkeye. Huh? It's already time to see you. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, then. I waved goodbye to Raven before he stormed out of the classroom with a glint of renewed determination in his eyes. A few minutes passed by as I cleaned up the chess set while Mari and Rena finished up their games. And shortly after, Rena joined the class again with a defeated look on her face. Sophie consoled her with a smile as I led everyone up to the chalkboard where a complicated light element alchemy circle was drawn on the board. Okay, so what can you guys tell me about this alchemy circle? I pointed to the alchemy circle on the chalkboard as Sophie opened up her notebook before her hand immediately shot up. Yes, Sophie? The alchemy circle is one for radiant barrier. It's a light element alchemy circle that generates a flat circular barrier of mana similar to many basic defensive spells. Here, I've drawn another one detailing all the sub-designs. I know the function of it, that they are in this alchemy circle. Can you double-check if everything's right, Professor Kyle? Sophie held her notebook out and showed us the absurdly complicated diagram that she drew before handing it to me as I let out a light cough. So, this is what I get for actually trying to teach, huh? She's looking at me with that excited twinkle in her eyes again. What do I do? My eyes darted around the room as I desperately searched for something to help me get out of this situation before eventually staring out the window. Luckily, the weather outside today was nice and warm. In fact, it was almost perfect weather for practical training. Yeah, practical training. Now that I think about it, we haven't practiced drawing alchemy circles at all. So we can just do that for the rest of the day. It'll be a nice break from just regurgitating random alchemy circles on the board every day or two. Radiant Barrier is even a pretty decent circle to test their skills. It's not insanely difficult to draw, but it's not too easy either. And it's easy to test. We can just set up their alchemy circles on some training dummies, and I'll whack the barrier a couple of times to see how strong it is. It's perfect. I stared at the diagram for a moment before closing her notebook and handing it back to her. Everything looks correct to me. Anyway, just to make sure you've all copied down the alchemy circles somewhere, right? Oh, why, yes. Why? Asked Sophie. Well, I was just thinking it's a beautiful day today. So how about we move class outside and practice drawing this alchemy circle? After all, Radiant Barrier is a pretty useful one to know, so I want to make sure you can all draw this one correctly. I smiled and pointed towards the window at the clear blue sky outside, but unfortunately my enthusiasm was met with a mixture of confusion and concern. Rena, Rengus, and Zane had varying degrees of surprise written on their faces, while Sophie and Halbert were giving me worried looks. Wait, you mean we're actually going to be doing something other than staring at the board today? Professor Kyle, are you sure you don't need to sit down for a moment? Is it that surprising for me to actually do my job for once? Royal Academy Training Field. Kyle's point of view. A deep breath of fresh air entered my lungs as I stared at the wide-open training field in front of me before shielding my eyes from the sun with my free hand as I gazed at the clouds in the sky. It really is nice out today. I guess summer hasn't completely disappeared yet, huh? A light breeze blew past me, making my hair flow a little in the wind as the corners of my mouth couldn't help but edge upwards into a smile before I slowly walked over to the middle of the field to place a wooden training dummy that I was carrying. Mari opted not to join us and went back to her office for the day. I told her that we were moving outside, so what met my eyes when I turned around was the class lined up in front of me holding their notebooks. All right, so we're going to be testing our circle drawing skills today. Who wants to go first? Is that even a question at this point, Kai? We all know who it's going to be. Zane let out a dry laugh as Sophie pulled out 2 vials of golden-colored liquid along with a similarly colored monster core before turning to me with an excited smile. Of course, leave it to me. Well, I think just using a regular pen would be fine, but I guess you can use the enchanted ink if you want to. I'm warning you, though. It's pretty hard to get it right on the first try. It's fine. I have plenty of enchanted ink. Sophie walked up to the wooden dummy, and a few minutes later, a complete alchemy circle for Radiant Barrier was neatly drawn in the middle of the torso. She held the light element monster core up to the circle before silently activating it with her mana as a bright yellow light shone from the alchemy circle, and a circular shield made of light element mana formed in front of the dummy. It was large enough to cover the whole dummy, and the shield itself was faintly transparent, which meant that Sophie had drawn and activated it correctly. All right, how's that? Asked Sophie. I lightly knocked in the middle of the shield like I was knocking on a door, and every time my hand made contact, a small wave of mana rippled through the shield from the point of contact, canceling out the impact from my knocking. Looks good to me. Okay, so now that we have the shield, the first thing I want you guys to know about the shield's limits. A shield cast activation of Radiant Barrier can just barely block a third circle spell. So, while it's a decidedly strong shield, don't think you're invincible just because you're standing behind it. You have to keep its maximum durability in mind. Maximum durability. I only did a single cast activation, but since I used light element enchantment ink, it should be more durable than usual. I stared at the shield again for a moment before turning back to the class with a nonchalant shrug. Well, I'm not exactly sure how durable it is, and if the circle was drawn with enchanted ink, well, so I guess we can test it out. All right, looks like it's my turn to shine then. Everyone stand back. I'll hit it with a third circle wind spell to start, cried Zane. It's fine. You don't need to. Huh? Wait, how would we test it then? Zane stared at me with a confused look on his face as I lightly knocked on the shield again. Well, we can just hit the shield directly, can't we? Why bother casting a spell and wasting your mana? Hit it. Yeah, we don't have any weapons with us, though. We don't need a weapon. A fist works just fine, doesn't it? Magic and martial techniques aren't your only options to attack, you know. Sometimes just straight-up punches and kicks are viable, too. I cracked my knuckles and turned around to face the wooden training dummy before calling out to everyone. For example, like this. My body struck a simple stance, and I pulled my fist back, holding it against the side of my waist before sharply exhaling as it shot forward. The moment it made contact with the shield, A huge pulse of mana rippled through it, and I felt some resistance for a moment before my fist broke right through. The sound of glass shattering rang out as my fist stopped right before it smashed into the wooden dummy, and a small burst of wind generated from my punch made my clothes and hair flutter just a little bit. Damn, I might be a little off, but it seemed like it could have taken a good bit more than just a single third circle spell. Maybe even 2 third circle spells, even if it was drawn using enchanted ink. The fact that this was so durable in the first place means that Sophie drew it almost perfectly, and on her first try, too. I knew she was talented, but this is kind of unbelievable. The first time I drew Radiant Barrier, it took me about 3 attempts before I even got it barely working. I guess Mario's right. This really is the golden generation, huh? After breaking the shield, I returned to casual standing position before turning back around to face the shocked class with a shaky look on my face as a cold sweat ran down my head. That Radiant Barrier was almost twice as strong as normal. Your talent for alchemy's pretty scary, Sophie. Wait, I'm the scary one? You're the one who just can punch straight through a barrier without body-strengthening magic. The sound of glass shattered and rang out again as I smashed Zane's Radiant Barrier before I turned around to see him collapse to the ground in exhaustion while letting out a sigh of relief. It's a little weaker than usual, but considering you just used normal pen, I think you did a pretty decent job this time, Zane. This one gets a pass from me. Oh, finally. That was what, my 13th try? 14th, actually. How the hell did you get so perfectly on your first try, Sophie? Kai was right. Your talent really is scary. Well, it's not my fault you suck at drawing circles. You're just a freak. You don't even know how hard it was to get all those tiny details right. Actually, what time is it? Zane and Sophie started to bicker in the background again while Rena and Halbert tried to stop them. But I just ignored the whole spectacle and stared up at the sky again. Judging by the position of the sun, it was about time for class to end. Luckily, though, everyone had already managed to draw a working Radiant Barrier at least once, and honestly, they were all pretty good at it. Rena only took about 5 tries before she managed to draw a decent working one, and it took Halbert about 8 attempts to get one working, while Rangus took 9. As mentioned before, Zane took 14 tries, and Sophie, well, I kind of expected her to be a monster at alchemy from the beginning, but let's just say she really lives up to her reputation. Anyway, that's good enough for today, I think. I should probably dismiss them now. Looks like we're out of time today, so I guess class is dismissed. I'll see you all tomorrow. Solaria. Middle District. Israelville Mansion. Arya's point of view. The first thing I heard when I woke up was the faint sound of birds chirping outside. And a moment later, I slowly opened my eyes to see the ceiling, illuminated by the morning sunlight. After sitting up in bed, I rubbed my eyes for a bit and let out a yawn before turning my gaze out the window at the clouds leisurely floating through the sky as a sense of lethargy spread through me. A few more moments passed by, while I stared blankly at the vast blue sky outside before the sound of light knocking on my door snapped me back to my senses. Arya, are you awake yet? Breakfast is ready. Yeah. I moved my legs over and leaned back in my bed while stretching, when suddenly the door opened to reveal Kai standing there with his apron on. We locked eyes, and I froze up in mid-stretch as he stared at me for a moment before giving me a slightly disappointed look. You just woke up, didn't you? No, I scrambled through my head to think of an excuse before I could come up with one. Kai let out a faint sigh as he walked over to me. I sat up in an embarrassed panic as he got closer, but after a moment, he was already standing right in front of me. Come on, it's almost 7. Here, let me fix your hair. Huh? Wait. I felt his hand softly plop down on my head. They were radiating with a familiar warmth, and a moment passed by before he started to run through my hair, straightening it out as a faint blush spread in the tips of my ears. I'm pretty sure Kai took about a minute to fix my hair, but that 1 minute felt like 10 to me, and when he finished, he took a step back to look at me before giving me a gentle smile. I immediately broke eye contact with him and lowered my head to stare at my legs as I felt my heart rate rising. Okay, all done. Go wash your face and change out of the pajamas. Then meet me downstairs for breakfast. Today's going to be eggs and bacon. Kai left my room after that, and when I finally heard the last of his footsteps disappear, I immediately picked up my pillow, buried my face in it, and let out a cute whimper before starting to calm myself down. Ugh. Solaria, Middle District, Israel Mansion, Kyle's point of view. Soft sunlight shone into the kitchen from the window and warmed me up slightly as a faint breeze made the curtains flutter before spreading the delicious aroma of eggs and bacon into the living room. It was a picturesque scene of a peaceful morning, and I couldn't help but cheerfully hum a tune while I sat at the dining table reading a book. 2 plates of eggs and bacon were sitting in front of me, and just as I flipped to the next page, I saw a hint of red pop out of the corner of my eye. I lowered my book to my hands, and I turned towards the kitchen entrance to see Arya's head popping out from behind the wall. Hey, what are you waiting for? Sit down and eat. You'll be late. We made eye contact for a moment, and she let out a soft grumble before walking into the room. She took a seat across from me and picked up her utensils as I put my book down and followed suit. But before I could even say anything else, she abruptly stood up in her seat and glanced at the clock. Wait, it's 7:30 already? I told you you'd be late if you didn't hurry up, didn't I? Well, it's too late to regret it now. Just eat quickly. A few minutes later, Arya dropped her utensils onto her plate with a clang as she finished wolfing down her breakfast before running out of the kitchen in a panic while I took her empty plate and put it in the sink. Thanks, Kai, I'm heading out. All right, see you later. After that, I heard the sound of the door opening and closing before quiet returned to the house as I finished eating breakfast myself. I placed the last of the dishes on the drying rack with a light clang and turned off the sink as I glanced over at the clock in the wall. It's almost 8 already, huh? I guess I should start heading to class. A moment passed by as I stretched my arms a bit after cleaning the dishes, but as I walked out of the kitchen, I saw something unexpected. Sitting on the living room table was a familiar-looking lunchbox. It was Arya's lunchbox. I walked over and stared at it for a moment before letting out a disappointed sigh. Of course she forgot it. Well, looking at the time, I didn't think I'd make it to the 7th Squad barracks and back to the alchemy class before class started up, so I guess I'll have to drop it off to her during lunchtime. Solaria, Edge of the Middle District, 7th Squad barracks. Kyle's point of view. The faint hustle and bustle of the city echoed out as the background as I made my way towards the 7th Squad barracks with Arya's lunchbox in hand. It was about noon, and lunchtime for the class started a while ago. Raven came over to visit as usual, rambling about how today was the day that he would finally defeat me. But unfortunately for him, I had a certain idiot's lunchbox to drop off today. So after pushing my match with him into Marie, I went on my merry way, bringing us to my current situation. After a few minutes of walking, I finally arrived in front of the large metal gate to a familiar dojo-style building. The same old plaque labeled 7th Squad that was stuck in the front of the building told me that I was indeed in the right place, but it seemed like there wasn't much happening today, because I didn't see anyone behind the gate as I walked up to it. Damn. I was hoping someone would be here to let me in. Should I climb over? Oh, wait, it's open. Yep, that's right, the gate was open. You see, when I walked up and nudged it slightly, I was prepared to vault myself over it, but it just opened by itself. I guess someone forgot to lock it. Well, whatever. Easier for me, I guess. After the closing the gate behind me, I started to walk over to the front door of the 7th Squad barracks when suddenly I saw someone with blonde hair, which contrasted against the bright green eyes. And a moment passed by while we stared at each other before he started to dash over with a serious look on his face. Oh, looks like someone's actually is here today. Perfect. I can probably just drop off Arya's lunch to him. Hi, are you... I smiled nicely and raised my hand up to wave hello. But before I could even finish my sentence, the tip of his longsword was held at my throat, and he yelled at me while radiating ill intent. "Who are you?" "Ah, I see. This is going to be one of those days, huh?" "Solaria. Edge of the Middle District, 7 Squad Barracks. Edward's point of view." I could feel a light breeze blowing past my face, as I stood there with my eyes closed while the chirping of birds blended in with the faint drone of the city. Then I opened my eyes. The background noise was drowned out by the sound of the sword slicing through the air as I took my step forward. A few swift swings later, I resheathed my longsword at my left hip and let out a sigh to release most of my body's tension after finishing my daily practice routine. Looking up at the sky told me it was a little past noon, about time for me to head back inside and eat lunch. Speaking of which, Captain Arya said she lost her lunchbox today, right? Well, if she didn't find it yet, maybe this was my chance to impress her. I'll give her some of mine. No, all of mine. After all, it's proper gentleman's duty to help a beautiful maiden through their troubles. And, well, it wouldn't hurt if she saw how nice I was and fell for me, too. The mental image of a beautiful woman with flowering crimson-red hair surfaced in my mind as I held my chin in my hand while the corners of my mouth curved upwards into an expectant smile before I reminisced about the first time we met. I'll admit, when I first met her, I didn't think much of her. She was very pretty, but I've seen a lot of pretty women in my time, and just being pretty wasn't enough for me. However, there's just one thing I'll never forget. It's those cold yet beautiful red eyes staring down at me as she helped me up after easily crushing me with just a practice sword during our duel for position of captain. That was the first day we met, and also the exact moment that she stole my heart. I don't know what everyone else thinks of her, but to me, Captain Arya was more than just a pretty face. She was strong, she was noble, and despite her cold outward demeanor, she was even gentle. A few moments passed before I let out a sigh and finally returned to my senses. Well, I should head inside. Everyone's probably waiting for me. I turned around to walk towards the door to the training room. However, as I was about to enter the training room, the sound of a faint creaking of the front gate caught my attention. Did someone go out? I spread my mana out as I tried to sense who it was, but I could vaguely tell that everyone else was inside, whereas there wasn't a single mana signature by the gate. Strange. I immediately turned suspicious as I changed my direction and started to walk towards the front gate instead. When I finally rounded the corner, what I saw was a man in a dress shirt and red tie loosely tied around his neck. He had a head of long white hair that was tied into a ponytail, and his golden-colored eyes met mine for a moment as we stared at each other. But this appearance wasn't the important part. What was important was that in his hand he was holding a familiar-looking lunchbox, one that I had seen plenty of times. It was Captain Arya's lunchbox. Once I saw him, I immediately tried to sense his mana signature again, but it was the same as before. Absolutely nothing. He had no mana signature. Is he a thief trying to steal Captain Arya's lunchbox? No, probably not. Since he's capable of completely hiding his mana signature, he's definitely skilled, not the type of petty thief who only steals food. There was plenty of things more valuable than Captain Arya's lunchbox that he could steal instead. Wait, could it be? Is he an assassin of some sort trying to poison Captain Arya's lunch? That would make sense, seeing that he looks more like he was trying to sneak in. After coming to my conclusion, I immediately dashed over to apprehend the intruder as I grabbed the hilt of my sword. Hi, are you... I heard him call out to me in a friendly voice to try and lower my guard, but the instant I saw his hand moved, I pulled out my sword and it flashed through the air before stopping right at his neck as I yelled at him, "Who are you?" "Nice try, but I'm not easily fooled. I'll make you pay for this. How dare you make an attempt on Captain Arya's life?"